The LBJ house certainly has a chilling history. Stories of tragic events like family murder-suicides often leave a haunting imprint on a location, and it's not uncommon for people to report eerie phenomena in such places. Cold spots and inexplicable stains can add to the unsettling atmosphere, making it a focal point for those interested in the paranormal. Have there been any notable investigations or stories from people who visited? As dusk fell, the air around the LBJ house thickened with an eerie silence. Local legends spoke of a night when the family's laughter turned to screams, echoing through the once vibrant halls. Those who ventured inside would often feel a sudden drop in temperature, as if the house itself exhaled a breath of sorrow. One brave group of urban explorers, armed with flashlights and cameras, decided to document their experience. They entered the creaking front door, the hinges groaning like an old man awakening from a long slumber. The atmosphere was heavy, almost suffocating, as they stepped into the dimly lit foyer. As they moved deeper into the house, whispers seemed to flit through the air, barely audible but unmistakable. The explorers exchanged nervous glances, trying to rationalize the feeling of being watched. The walls, stained and peeling, told stories of neglect, but it was the blood-red streaks that drew their attention. "Look at that," one of them whispered, pointing to a particularly dark stain that seemed to pulse under the beam of their flashlight. "It looks fresh." The others moved closer, squinting as they tried to discern what they were seeing. Suddenly, a chilling gust of wind swept through the room, extinguishing their lights. Panic set in as they fumbled for their phones, illuminating the space with their screens. In the flickering light, shadows danced along the walls, and they could swear they heard the faint sound of sobbing. As they regrouped, one member of the group suggested they investigate the basement, rumored to be the heart of the house's dark energy. With hesitant nods, they made their way toward the basement door, its wood splintered and warped. As they descended the narrow staircase, the air grew thicker, filled with a palpable sense of dread. The light from their phones barely penetrated the darkness, casting long, distorted shadows that flickered like flames. At the bottom, they found a small, damp room, the walls lined with old, rusted tools and remnants of forgotten lives. In the center stood a solitary chair, as if waiting for someone to take a seat. It was then that they noticed something unusual on the ground, a series of footprints leading away from the chair, but no apparent source. As they followed the trail, the temperature dropped even further, and they felt an undeniable presence closing in. A figure seemed to materialize in the corner of the room, shrouded in shadows, watching them with an intensity that froze them in place. Just then, a loud bang echoed through the basement, shaking the walls and causing dust to fall from the ceiling. The explorers instinctively huddled together, hearts racing. They could feel the weight of the house's tragic past pressing down on them, and the whispers grew louder, wrapping around them like a suffocating blanket. The echoes of the bang faded, replaced by an almost suffocating silence. The figure in the corner seemed to shift, its presence both unsettling and compelling. A chill ran down their spines as they dared to approach. "Did you see that?" one of the explorers stammered, gripping the arm of a friend. It looked like someone was standing there. Another member of the group, trying to muster courage, stepped forward. "We have to investigate. If there's something here, we need to find out what it wants." The others nodded, albeit hesitantly, and they edged closer to the shadowy corner. As they approached, the air grew thick with an unnatural heaviness. The whispers became clearer now, almost like a lament, a sorrowful melody of voices blending together in a mournful chorus. They could make out phrases that sent shivers down their spines. "Help us," "trapped," and "remember." Suddenly, one of the group members pointed at the chair in the center of the room. What if we sit in it? Maybe it'll show us something." The others exchanged dubious glances. "You want to sit in that?" another one said incredulously. But the urge to uncover the truth was stronger than their fears. With a deep breath, one of them approached the chair and, trembling, lowered themselves into it. The moment they sat down, the whispers intensified, swirling around them like a tempest. The room seemed to vibrate with energy, and for a moment, everything fell silent. Then, as if awakening from a dream, the explorers' eyes widened in realization. I see something, they gasped, gripping the armrests tightly. The others leaned in closer, their hearts pounding in anticipation. In that moment, a vision flooded their minds, a glimpse of the family that once inhabited the house. They saw laughter and joy, but also tension and despair. The explorer's voice trembled as they recounted what they saw. There was a fight, things got out of control, and then their voice trailed off, as if grappling with the weight of the memory. The room grew colder, the air heavy with the echoes of the past. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the basement, extinguishing their phone lights once more. Panic surged through the group as they scrambled to turn them back on, but something felt different now. The shadows seemed to shift, closing in around them. "Get out!" A voice suddenly shouted from the darkness, sharp and commanding. It wasn't one of their own. The group froze, fear paralyzing them as the presence grew more tangible, more aggressive. "We shouldn't have come here," someone screamed, and they all began to move toward the stairs, hearts racing and breaths quickening. But the shadows shifted again, blocking their path. "Help us!" The voice wailed again, now desperate, pleading. It was as if the house itself was crying out, caught in an endless loop of anguish. With every ounce of courage, they rushed toward the stairs, their minds racing. What had they stumbled into? Would they be able to escape the house's dark grip? Or would they become part of its tragic history? Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story. As they surged toward the staircase, the air grew thick with tension, the shadows pressing in on all sides. The whispers became frantic, a cacophony of voices begging for release. "Don't leave us," one voice cried, while another insisted, "You must remember." Just as they reached the first step, the basement door slammed shut with a deafening bang, reverberating through the room. Panic surged, and they all turned to face the door, which now seemed like a solid wall, a barrier between them and the outside world. "Try to open it," someone shouted, and they rushed back, throwing themselves against the heavy wood, but it wouldn't budge. The whispers escalated into a chaotic chorus, filling their ears with sorrow and rage. "Get away from the chair," a voice screamed from the darkness, sending a jolt of fear through them. They hesitated for just a moment, caught between the pulsing energy of the room and the fear of whatever lurked beyond. One of the explorers, a skeptic who had been questioning the entire experience, suddenly took a step back, eyes wide with terror. What if it's not just memories? What if it's something more? Before anyone could respond, the figure they had seen earlier emerged from the shadows, clearer now, but twisted and distorted, as if caught between worlds. It wore a look of anguish, eyes hollow and pleading. The group huddled together, fear gripping them as they faced the apparition. "You have to help us," it whispered, its voice barely above a breath. "We're trapped here. You must remember what happened." With that, the explorer in the chair began to shake, overwhelmed by the intensity of the vision. I can't," they gasped, struggling to speak through the turmoil. "There's so much pain." Suddenly, the room shifted, the air shimmering like heat waves. Images flooded their minds, arguments, tears, a sense of impending doom. They saw the family, the love that had turned to violence, and the dark shadow of despair that had consumed them. "Don't let it happen again," the figure implored, reaching out with a trembling hand. The explorer in the chair felt an icy grip on their wrist, and a surge of memories crashed over them, too many to process, too painful to bear. "Get out!" someone cried again, but they felt rooted in place, as if the weight of the past held them captive. "Please," the figure begged, desperation etching its features. "You must tell our story. Break the cycle." The energy in the room shifted, becoming almost electric, and the whispers grew more frantic. The door seemed to pulse, as if the house itself was alive, responding to their fear. With a sudden, overwhelming urge, the explorer in the chair forced themselves to focus. "We won't forget," they shouted, their voice cutting through the chaos. "We'll remember." In that instant, A blinding light filled the room, and the shadows recoiled, as if struck. The group shielded their eyes, and for a moment, everything felt suspended in time. When the light faded, the figure stood before them, softer now, less menacing, and yet still filled with sorrow. "Thank you," it whispered, a hint of peace replacing the anguish. "Remember us, and set us free." With a final shimmer, the apparition faded, and the whispers quieted, leaving only a heavy silence in its wake. The door creaked open slowly, revealing the way back to the living world. But the group remained frozen, caught between fear and the weight of what they had just experienced. Would they have the strength to face what lay beyond? And would they truly carry the memory of the tragedy that had unfolded within these walls? The door swung open with a hesitant creak, revealing the dimly lit staircase leading back to the foyer. The explorers exchanged nervous glances, their hearts still racing from the encounter. The air felt lighter now, as if a great weight had been lifted, but an undercurrent of tension remained, a reminder of the shadows they had just faced. "We need to leave," one of them urged, stepping cautiously toward the stairs. "Now!" But before they could make their escape, a soft voice echoed from the corner of the room. "You must remember all of it." They turned back, heartbeats pounding in their ears. The shadows seemed to swirl around the chair once more, coalescing into shapes that flickered in and out of focus. Memories were trapped here, held hostage by the very essence of the house. "Why?" one of the explorers asked, stepping forward despite the urge to flee. "Why is it so important?" The shadows whispered in unison, their voices rising and falling like a mournful tide. "To break the curse, to tell our story. Only then can we rest." The skeptic among them shook their head, grappling with the gravity of the moment. "But what does that mean for us? We can't just share what we saw without understanding it." "Then we need to learn," the brave explorer who had sat in the chair declared, a newfound determination sparking in their eyes. "We can't leave them like this. We have to find out what happened here." The group hesitated, fear still clinging to them, but the thought of leaving without understanding felt unbearable. They turned back to the room, where the atmosphere had shifted again, the shadows now swirling gently, almost inviting. "Let's split up," another member suggested, glancing around the basement. "We can search for clues. Maybe there are records or objects that can help us piece together their story." With a collective nod, they began to search the cramped space, the beams of their phone lights cutting through the darkness. They rummaged through boxes filled with old newspapers, faded photographs, and items long forgotten. Each find felt like a thread in the tapestry of the family's past. "Look at this," one of them exclaimed, holding up a yellowed newspaper clipping. It detailed a family tragedy from decades ago, an argument that had escalated into violence, leading to a tragic end. The others crowded around, eyes wide as they read the haunting details. "Is this it?" one whispered, tracing the words with trembling fingers. "Is this what happened?" "Yes," the brave explorer replied, their voice steady despite the turmoil. "This is a piece of their story, and it's only the beginning." As they continued to search, more fragments surfaced. Letters filled with despair, photographs capturing fleeting moments of happiness, and journal entries that chronicled the family's unraveling. Each item added depth to their understanding, painting a vivid picture of the love that had once thrived within these walls, now overshadowed by tragedy. Just as they began to feel a sense of connection to the family, a sudden chill swept through the room, and the whispers returned, more insistent than before. "Remember us, you must remember." The explorers paused, the weight of their task settling heavily on their shoulders. They realized this was more than just a quest for truth. It was a responsibility to honor the memories of those who had suffered. "We can do this," the brave explorer declared, gathering the others. "We can share their story, bring light to their pain, and help them find peace." But as they prepared to leave the basement, the air shifted once more. The door began to close, creaking ominously as if the house was responding to their determination. Shadows flickered, and a sense of urgency filled the space. "We need to hurry," one of them shouted, and they rushed toward the stairs, clutching their findings tightly. Just as they reached the door, it slammed shut with a deafening crash, sending them sprawling back. The room was engulfed in darkness, and the whispers crescendoed into a chaotic symphony of voices. "Remember, tell our story set us free." In the heart of the storm, the explorers realized that their only path forward lay in facing the darkness that surrounded them both within the house and within themselves. Would they be able to break through the fear and find a way to honor the past? The struggle for their own freedom had only just begun. With the door firmly shut and the room alive with chaotic energy, the explorers huddled together, hearts pounding in unison. The whispers grew louder, almost deafening, as if the spirits were urging them to take action. "Remember us," the voices cried, blending into a desperate plea. The brave explorer stepped forward, adrenaline coursing through their veins. "We will remember. We'll share your story," they shouted into the darkness, hoping their words would penetrate the turmoil surrounding them. In response, the room seemed to pause, the air vibrating with a strange energy. The shadows momentarily stilled, and the whispers transformed into a soft murmur, a cautious acknowledgement of their promise. "Write it down," another explorer urged, pulling out their phone. "We need to document everything we found." As they gathered their scattered notes and findings, a flicker of light illuminated the basement. The figure of the family, once twisted by despair, appeared again, clearer and more serene. "Thank you," it said softly, the anguish in its eyes fading. "You are our voice." With renewed determination, the group began to write, recounting the tragic tale they had unearthed, the love, the conflict, and ultimately, the sorrow that had trapped the family in this house. As they documented each detail, the atmosphere shifted. The shadows around them began to recede, and the oppressive weight lifted. Suddenly, the door creaked open again, but this time, the light spilling in felt warm and inviting. The explorers exchanged hopeful glances, sensing that their efforts were making a difference. "Let's finish this," the brave explorer said, urgency in their voice. They continued to write, weaving together the fragments of the family's story into a coherent narrative, a testament to both joy and tragedy. As they wrote, the spirits began to gather around them, their forms growing lighter, almost ethereal. "We are grateful," the figure whispered. "You've brought us hope." With one final sentence, the brave explorer closed the notebook. "We'll share this with the world. We promise you will not be forgotten." In an instant, the room filled with a radiant light, illuminating every corner of the basement. The figures of the family surrounded them, their expressions transformed into serene smiles. The energy shifted once more, a wave of peace washing over the explorers. "Thank you," the family's figure echoed, and with that, the spirits began to dissolve into the light, a gentle breeze sweeping through the basement, carrying with it the weight of their sorrow. The explorers felt a profound sense of calm as the whispers faded into silence. The air grew warm, and the shadows that had once clung to the walls dissipated like mist under the sun. With the door now wide open, they stepped out into the foyer, the outside world welcoming them back. The house felt different, somehow lighter, free from the burdens of its past. As they emerged into the cool evening air, they looked at each other, a shared understanding passing between them. They had not only confronted the darkness of the LBJ house, but had also given a voice to those who had long been silenced. Their journey was far from over. They would share the family's story, ensuring that the pain and love of those lost would resonate in the hearts of many. And as they walked away, they felt a lingering warmth, a gentle reminder that sometimes, facing the darkness is the only way to find the light. The echoes of the past would always be part of them, but now they were armed with the truth, a truth that could heal, a truth that could set them all free. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story.